Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur as we approach the descent into a new big Premier League scrum, really. We're about to go into like 5, 6, 7 games in a row. It's going to get busy. We're enjoying the rest of this international break as we can before we descend into the chaos. We're just going to be asking some questions about some of the recent news that's happened over the international break. Is there anything to believe in it? Is there a bit of a feud, a discord that's going on between Ange Postecoglou and the players? Also Spurs, maybe just to keep us entertained as well as to maybe wake us up and keep us angry as always. They've decided to come up with a new crest, a new design. So we'll be talking about that at some point today. We have Alan filling in for Johnny, who's celebrating his birthday. He's gone off to an escape room, so hopefully he comes back, all shaved and all in one piece. But we have a good panel here today to enjoy this little international break and still chat about Spurs and give you guys your fix. But Dave, we're about to descend, like I was saying in the beginning there, into the crazy period. Game after game after game. December, January pretty much does. It doesn't stop until March practically. So we got to hold on. The roller coaster is about to begin.
Yeah, we've a huge period coming up. I think we've got Man City, Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool. Just after then Christmas, we have. Over the Christmas, then we have the likes of Newcastle. Just after Christmas, with the likes of Arsenal. So we've Nottingham Forest in over the December period as well. So we've a really, really big, fixture list coming up, carrying a lot of injuries as well. So let's see how we can navigate it. Plus, it's a crucial time. What we're going to address today. You've got rumors coming out about discontent in the dressing room. Doesn't exactly strike any Spurs fans full of confidence heading into these upcoming fixtures when you're hearing rumors of that. It's almost like the precedent is being put out there not to expect anything or to expect the worst coming your way over the next little while. But the next few games are absolutely crucial in terms of this project. Are we going to kick on? Are we not? But look, plenty to discuss. Never a dull time as a Spurs fan. Thinking 2-week international break be absolutely bliss. 3 days into it, discontent in the dressing room. So, that's the life of a Spurs fan.
No, it's never. And also, as well, I think we were wanting to go into the international break off of the back of an Ipswich win. We didn't probably have to think too much about, the drama of Spurs. But of course, they couldn't give us that pleasure. And also, the recent reports and the recent news haven't given us maybe any ease of mind either. Going to go to Sam, and then we'll go to our man Alan that's filling in for today, and hopefully we get him in on some more shows as well. But Sam, to you, sir. How are you? Apart from the miscommunication at the back line between yourself and Dave, everything okay? You enjoy your weekend, enjoying the international break so far?
Yeah, man. Look, I mean, if I did care about watching the Nations League, I might say to Dave, he's been awfully quiet since the weekend.
Very quiet.
But yeah, no, it's always nice to see Harry Kane getting his plaudits over the international break. He's still my guy, no matter what anyone wants to say in the comments or in the fan base. And yeah, just back at work, the weather's really turned here in London. Today it was snowing. So just trying to stay warm, really. I'm excited to get on with Alan. I really appreciate his takes in the fan show. So it's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, happy birthday to Johnny as well.
And hopefully he escapes, says Tyler as well. What happens if he doesn't escape? Very good question, Tyler. Alan, how are you? Good to have you with us, filling in for Johnny. My question to you, have you ever done an escape room? Would you have any advice for Johnny if you were listening back to this?
I did. I have done an escape room. I got out, luckily. I would say the best bet is, just if you're not sure of what to do, stand back and let someone else lead, and then just sort of look at everything around the room and touch everything and move everything, and that's how I found everything pretty much. That's with the escape room. So hopefully Johnny's handsy and can make his way through the room.
Be curious, Johnny. Ask questions. Feel yourself around, and hopefully we can have you back with us at some point. Good to see so many people in the house. So many good names. We can't get through them all because we do have a tight schedule on this show. But I'm seeing Big Tyler's in the house. Kaylee's in here. Ryan, Eugene, Killian Kenny, Deli20, MV Joker Davis, so many lovely people. And the Big Mike as well. Big Mike, hopefully you're doing okay, my man. Would love to get you on a fan show. We're also on to one of these shows. Dave and I really loved when we had you on the show a long time ago, but hopefully you're doing okay. MV Joker Davis fan watching the Australia game and hoping for a big win. Dave, I think you and Eddie are in a very similar mold right now with the Ireland team and the Australia side. You're not really in your golden period, aren't you?
No, it's tough. You know, you think you have it bad as Tottenham fans. I mean, you know, at least most of you get to go away on international break, win games, and you know, despite the way Tottenham leave you heading into the international break, you get that bit of reprieve. As for me, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And, you know, the thing is with Ireland, no one even knows where to begin to sort it out. So, you know, look, people can slag me about, you know, losing 5-0 the other day. But at the end of the day, what joy do you get when you're slagging a beaten dog at the end of the day? You know what I mean? There's no point. There's no joy in it. So, look, let's just brush it under the carpet and let's talk about Tottenham Hotspur. Not that it brings me any more joy recently.
Well, hopefully we can find an angle, which it can. Edward, but big up to you, my friend. Really appreciate the support. And also, everybody, if you can for us, before we get into the questions, smash the like button, do get into the comments, and also do consider becoming a member as well if you want to join for the future fan shows. They're going to be coming thick and fast. That really crazy period that's about to happen. Members match previews will be coming up on a regular basis. Lots of content coming your way as we descend into the chaos. So if you want to support the channel just that little bit further, consider becoming a member and smash the like button. But let's get into it here, everybody. We're going to go maybe to you first here, to Sam, and we're going to ask you kind of about that Football Insider article that reported that Ange Postecoglou has had a little bit of a bust up with at least 4 Spurs players that include Destiny Udogie, Vicario, as well as Bentancur and Romero, and they are believed to have been among those who have been upset by Postecoglou. Sources were saying that his straight talking in public as well as behind the scenes has had a negative reaction inside the dressing room and has sown some discord at the heart of the team's wild swings in form. Senior Spurs sources have told Football Insider that the next month is going to be pivotal for his future in North London, with an improvement required to cement his medium-term future at the club. Do you believe any of these reports, Sam, that there could be a bit of a bust-up between the players and Ange Postecoglou, or is this just perfect time to throw in an article like that over the international break?
I think we see these kind of stories like at least once or twice a year, right? Always kind of around the same time, going into an international break. I would say there's rarely smoke without fire, but at the same time, I think it's just a little bit too convenient. You know, we clearly have seen over the last like month or so that there is something going on behind the scenes between Madison and Ange. And I think that this source has just decided to try and ruffle some feathers and see what kind of like comes out of it with this whole situation. We discussed last week about Vicario being brought into the leadership group. And I feel like we were all kind of on the same page that like Vicario seems to be one of the players who definitely is behind Ange. So his name being in there really like kind of throws some doubt in my mind over the whole thing. I can kind of understand it being Romero. I think we've seen a bit about, you know, he's apparently been saying that he wants to play Champions League. And I think we can all agree that, you know, if you can't deal with the likes of Ipswich defenders, then how are you going to deal with like Vinicius and Mbappe in the Champions League? So I just think, I think there's obviously, you know, maybe there's some grumblings. I wouldn't have thought that it would have gone as far as a bust up in the sort of changing room or on the training pitch. And again, I also don't feel like Bentancur would have, especially with this ban looming. I feel like Bentancur's got more things to worry about than a little bust up with Ange. He's got 7 games to kind of sit on the side. You know, if things don't go the way that we need them to, he doesn't really need to do anything. He can just watch it all kind of come crashing down. So I don't think there is any seriousness to it. Maybe there's some underlying tones of discontent within the ranks, but I don't think that it would have come to it really. Personally.
Interesting. I mean, to you, Dave, though, there was that interesting part where they mentioned that, you know, the manager with his straight talking style, right, kind of maybe created a negative relationship between them and the players? Is that the players' responsibility for these kind of tensions between the manager and them? Is it Ange Postecoglou that's caused this riff? Who do you think has started the riff? Who bears more responsibility for these alleged tensions?
Look, first of all,
If
I
they
think,
exist, sorry.
yeah, look, first of all, don't get me wrong, it's definitely an opportune moment. I think, anyone that's sort of looking at Tottenham from the outside in would know that there's obviously going to be some rumblings in the dressing room, and I hope there is after losing to the likes of Ipswich and Palace in the manner we did, because if there's not, that's where I actually become concerned, because it means no one cares. But it is an opportune moment, and I think, if anyone, whoever was going to be put the first one to put that article out, they know it was going to generate clicks from Spurs fans. It always does over international breaks. So I think we're an easy target in that regard. However, we've had straight talking managers in the past, and dressing rooms have not liked it. Jose, Conte, some of these players were there under Conte, the likes of Romero, the likes of Bentancur, who also didn't like it. When you look at the high manager turnovers we've had, it's clear that the dressing room at Tottenham Hotspur isn't right. Yes, we've got more or less a new squad moving forward, but players and the dressing room at Tottenham have a history of throwing the manager under the bus. They can sit there, they can moan about him being straight talking, they can moan about the tactics. I do not care. At some point, have that dust up, iron out the things, and move forward as one. That's what I want to see. I'm absolutely sick of it. Managers versus players and this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, the players spoke about winning trophies before the season. A part of that is following what your manager's asking you to do to the letter of the law. At the end of the day, he's not out there throwing them under the bus in press conferences like Jose Mourinho or Conte does. He's the only one that comes out and bears responsibility and says, that's on me, I will fix that, and deals with a lot of it behind the scenes. So I'm not giving the players a free pass whatsoever. It's not good enough. It's a continual, perpetual cycle at Tottenham Hotspur that they just roll over and throw the manager under the bus to hide behind everything, rather than anyone coming out and taking accountability. All they ever do is hold their hands up like that after games. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't even want to see that. Just get down the fucking tunnel. I'm sick of it. At the end of the day, can you just focus on what's best for Tottenham Hotspur and how us fans want trophies? The managers we hire all speak about winning trophies, and the players we bring here speak about winning trophies. Even Timo Werner, when he signed, spoke about winning trophies at Tottenham Hotspur, believe it or not. So why can't then the people inside the club just come together? If they all have this opinion, they all want to win trophies, why can't they come together, find common ground, and move forward, iron out whatever the pieces is? It doesn't have to be huge where you throw one another under the bus, where it ends up in a sacking or a massive bust-up. Because at the end of the day, does Postecoglou want the season written off so early? No. Do the players want their season written off so early? No. Do the fans want it written off so early? No. So at the end of the day, find common ground, come together and sort the problems out. It can't be that big. It really can't be. But one last thing I will say is, that when these rumors start coming out under Jose, Nuno, Conte, results didn't pick up, grumblings ended up happening, performances got worse, and the manager ended up carrying the sack. So I would say somewhere over the next few weeks, probably expect an 11 p.m. announcement from Tottenham Hotspur on your phone. Tottenham have sacked Postecoglou and are looking to go in a different direction. But I just hope it doesn't come to that. I hope they can find common ground. They all say they want the same things. Winners, you don't have to get along. And people know this. If you listen to many managers, players in the game, you don't all get along in the dressing rooms. But what they do have is that mutual respect, because they all want to win. So if that's true, find it.
To you, Alan, I mean, Lazy 8, Nick here, doesn't seem to believe much in the rumors. You have Kaylee Davis kind of questioning, is there even a rift at all? K32 saying, I have no doubt that Romero and Matters, though, could be involved in some sulking. I mean, what do you make of this rumor? Do you believe that there could be any rift between Ange Postecoglou and the players? And if you do you feel like maybe it's the players' fault that they don't have enough thick skin really to, kind of pursue past this, difficult period?
Yeah, so when it comes to Spurs, first and foremost, I believe it's a business. I mean, they're all very highly paid employees for this organization. And in any organization, there's always going to be some, difficulty between management and the employees. I think if I take it back, and I think just not Spurs specific, just that very basic scenario, there's always going to be a little bit of a kerfuffle between the two. And especially when I got to imagine if I'm a highly paid employee, let's say I'm Christian Romero, I'm a very highly paid employee, and my manager, who's my kind of like my boss, is got a plan for me that I don't agree with. I might be disgruntled, regardless of how highly paid I am. I might be very frustrated. He's a Copa America winner, World Cup winner. So he may have ideas of what works and what doesn't. And Ange Postecoglou has his ideas of what works and what doesn't. And I got a feeling, like Sam said, there's probably, if there's smoke, there's probably a fire somewhere. But I don't know that it's necessarily any worse than at any other team. I'm sure every team, regardless of coach or players, there's got to be some sort of this, between them, because no one's going to see eye to eye all the time. And, so I think that the team itself probably is a little frustrated with the high line, probably like the fans. They're probably a little frustrated with what some people would call like suicide football, or all out attack all the time. It does put a lot of strain on the defense. I mean, look what it's done to Mickey Van de Ven. The poor guy, his hamstrings are going to have to be bionic at some point, because it's the only way he can handle all the running. And, unfortunately, it doesn't solve the problems that we're seeing, where we're letting goals in more than we probably should. And so I'm sure the players feel a little bit of frustration, especially if the coach isn't willing to listen to them going forward. I know we all work for a living. If your boss never listened to you or heard what you had to say and always shot you down, you might get frustrated. And I got a feeling that's probably what's happening here. We have a boss in Ange Postecoglou who has his idea. He's reiterated over and over again. He knows how to win, and he's not going to change. And if I'm a highly compensated employee, I feel like I should have some say. Hell, some of these players come in and they've got contracts where they do have a say. Like, they really do have a say.
They have a lot of power.
Yeah, they have a lot of power. So I got to imagine that it's somewhere in the middle there, where the players are probably feeling a little frustrated, not because of how we're playing. It's probably the communication. There's probably a breakdown in communication between the coach and the players, where the players probably don't feel heard, and the coach doesn't want to hear it too much. He just wants them to execute based on, it's like
Could it
you're
be
a
that
paid
straight
employee.
talking thing? That's sort of like he just sort of says my way or the highway. You just have to do it this way. Don't ask questions. Don't think about it too deeply. Just do it the way that I intended. And maybe players are starting to get sick of that.
Well, and if they were to execute,
we are mate. They're getting sick of that.
If they were to execute more consistently in his vision, I think maybe he would be willing to listen. It's like, look, at least you guys have been doing it. But I think the problem is we've seen a lot of inconsistency in their play style. There's not as much. There's a lot of mistakes being made. And oftentimes, as in any workplace, the people that screw up the most tend to be the most vocal, because they're compensating. So I got a feeling Ange wants consistency, a solid foundation, which I do not think that the Spurs team has yet. But once we have a solid foundation, my guess is, like any good manager, hopefully he would take on some of what they have to say. And it's like, okay, at least now we know how to do what I want you to do. Now we can expand and start doing things like maybe we do a little bit of counterattacking, stuff like that. But the team, there's no consistency. So it's very difficult for a manager to try to manage a team that requires consistency when there is none. So there's a bit of a power vacuum at the moment, I believe. So it's just, I don't necessarily believe the rumors like there's unrest or whatnot, but I'm sure there are players that are being more vocal than other players. And especially if it's players that are on the leadership team, which is Madison, Son, Romero. Is there anybody else on that leadership group? Vicario. So maybe Vicario. I can imagine they're speaking for the squad, but look, some of these players haven't been playing that well. I just watched Vicario have a mare of a game against France. I watched him put in an own goal and just have a terrible game. I'm hoping he got that out of his system, but we know when it comes to set pieces, he's obviously not that strong, and he's not strong for Italy either. So yes, I while I don't necessarily believe wholeheartedly the rumors, I do think that there's probably some truth to it. It's just a little more nuanced than what we're seeing.
What I find interesting about it is that it's 4 defensive players that have been named. So maybe is it down to tactical issues within the system that they feel like, they're being pulled apart by fans, by all the pundits, because the amount of goals we can see, there's going to be stuff done on them every week that maybe they feel it's unfair and that the system isn't protecting them. However, where I don't buy it is underneath Antonio Conte, we heard the words from Hugo Lloris. He done everything to demonstrate for them to win. But when it came to the training ground, some of them found it too boring. So that just shows to me that some players aren't interested in winning. They actually are just interested in making excuses on why they don't win and look to blame everybody else. For me, none of them players have the right at Tottenham Hotspur, bar Son, to throw a manager out this football door. If Son comes out and there's problems with a manager, then I'd say fair enough. But when it's some of the players that we've seen there that are all new to this football club, how fucking dare you? You should be walking in here, embracing what we're about, embracing what the manager wants you to do, and for you to be able to kick on. I don't buy it. They cannot be allowed to believe in the tactics when they want and then not believe in the tactics when they don't want. They had no problem believing in it when it helped them beat Man City and Aston Villa. But when it comes to the likes of Crystal Palace and Ipswich, all of a sudden they don't believe in it and it becomes a problem. I'm not buying it. I'm absolutely not buying it. Look, it could come down to a bit of communication from the way Ange Postecoglou manages and has managed at every other club, and we're led to believe at Tottenham it's no different. He is standoffish from the dressing room because he doesn't want to formulate that relationship with the players, because he doesn't want to get too close to them in case he has to drop them or in case he lets them go and they're not a part of the plans and stuff like that. So there could be that maybe they do have concerns and they're not getting it to the manager. But at what point do we just say to the dressing room, look, sit there, shut up, and do what you're asked to do. Do what you're paid to do. You think you know better? Okay, well, if you know better, then why then any manager that we have coming in here, it always comes round to the same thing where, they stop believing in the manager, this, that, and the other. I'm absolutely fed up with it. They're not getting a free pass either. At the end of the day, we employ Postecoglou to be able to bring his style of football. They all knew what they were signing up for. Vicario knew what he was signing up for. Maybe Edoji's a bit different, Bentancur, Romero, because they were here before he got here. But Vicario certainly knew what he was signing up for. So I don't know why he's sitting there throwing his noise out the pram and complaining, to be quite frank. Could have turned down Tottenham and went somewhere else. He chose not to. He chose to come here because he's on more or less double the wages he was on at Empoli. So sit there, shut up, and do what you're asked to do, in my opinion. Also, I do think it comes back to the summer transfer window. If we had more players coming in here, pushing players for their position of experience like we were expecting and like we were led to believe from many publications building up to that transfer window, half of them players wouldn't be able to sit there and complain about the tactics and stuff like that, because they'd have other players hunting down their spot. They wouldn't even have a minute to think about it. So I'm just absolutely sick of it. To me, it's just an excuse culture, and that's one thing that's got to change at Tottenham. However, I do think there's truth to the rumours.
He believes there's truth to the rumors, Sam. I mean, Dave had a lot of points to support that. But could there be something to the fact that it is mostly defenders that seem to be included in this article, that there's some discontent there, maybe just from the defenders? And could it be tactical? Could it be personal? If you were to put it down to anything, you seem to be in the camp, though, that you don't really tend to believe that this is really real. So just curious what you might think of the fact that it is all defenders that have been mentioned in the article.
It's not that I don't think that it's real. I just think that it's convenient that it's come up now when we're kind of like on the verge of what they say, maybe another crisis or whatever, you know?
Right.
I did agree with a lot of what Dave said. The one thing I did disagree with is when he said about they believe in it when it works, and when it doesn't work, they don't believe in it. But we basically have won and lost every other game since Ange came in. So it's difficult to build up a belief in a system or in a style of play when, as you say, you go and beat Man City and Aston Villa, and you know you're the kings of England, and then you go and lose to the, you know, in the analogy, the effective peasants of England, you know, with no disrespect to Ipswich. But I think personally, I think that's where I see the problem is that, you know, it's all well and good going and beating these big teams, but if you can't beat the teams that are lower than you, or then kind of what is the point of beating the big teams personally?
But is that tactical, not beating the teams lower than you? Because I'm sorry, no one can like, you know, Palace won. I think in isolation you could probably go tactical. Postecoglou should have started hitting the wings earlier. What he didn't navigate there is actually the size of the pitch and how, you know, narrow that Selhurst Park pitch is. He didn't take that into account. But I'm sorry, Ipswich, it comes down to applications. Some of the other ones, it comes down to applications from the players. You know, fans are at the game. Some of the warm-ups they're going through is lackluster before the games. I'm sorry. When you're beating the big teams, your tactics work. When you're losing to the smaller teams, it comes down to application, hunger, desire, and fire in your belly.
But I think that Ange has.
I'm sorry, but Sam, you don't need tactics to beat Ipswich. You just got to put 11 players out on the pitch and play to the
I'm
best of your
talking
ability.
about a mentality thing. I think Ange, and I've said it before, I think he has a lack of respect for the rest of the league. I think he comes in and he's desperate to beat these big teams because that shows that, you know, he's a top manager, and not necessarily that, like, you know, he's desperate for the applause, but I think that there is a mentality thing that comes into it.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, maybe he's better at riling up the players for these bigger games, and then maybe tactically it works against these bigger teams because they don't just sit back. I know Aston Villa's not the best example of that because they did sit back a lot, but in that Aston Villa game, I think we can all agree Aston Villa were disgracefully bad for the majority of the game. But I think that, as I said, I think it's a respect thing. The players don't respect the other clubs that are lower than them. They think we can go out there and play our football, and we'll win. But other teams, especially these teams like Ipswich and Crystal Palace, obviously they're fresh in the mind. They're gonna be fighting for their lives, and it's almost like these players have forgot what it's like to be hungry. And it's odd when you see, like, you know, if Vicario is involved in this, right? It's not like Empoli were, you know, a massive name in the Serie A and, you know, fighting on all fronts. So you would think that Vicario would kind of I just don't see Vicario being involved in it personally.
No, yeah, me neither, to be honest. I think especially in Vicario's case, because he was basically given his shot by Ange Postecoglou and Spurs. So for him so quickly to be trying to throw a manager under the bus or to have any sort of disagreement with him would be a surprise to me, because he's only just been given his big shot, you know, in the huge status that's the Premier League. Yes, he was one of the best goalkeepers in the Serie A, but that was only for like basically a season, if not, you know, barely a season at all at Empoli. So it would be a big surprise if he were to so quickly turn against Ange. And Dave and I joked, maybe Dave feels differently about this, but seeing Vicario even like coaching from the sidelines, you know, coaching from the bench, you know, with all that passion would also indicate to me that someone that is clearly still invested, is clearly still cares. So why at all would there be a disagreement between him and Ange? Even if there was, doesn't seem like it would be one that would be really that, you know, damaging or anything like that. That's serious, just a normal disagreement, if you will. Yeah,
maybe not all the players are 100% on the list. You know, maybe there's some missing. I think Madison won. I think Madison is definitely one. You look at what's happening there, something, mate, right? It doesn't take a genius to work that out. You know, you don't need 11 GCSEs, all A's to be able to tell you, you know, something ain't right there.
Yeah.
But what I will say is 3 of the players are some of the most exposed, or that people have had a lot of talk about so far. You know, this season, the likes of Romero, who's cost us how many goals, Vicario, set pieces, stuff like that. Adoji hasn't been, you know, at his best this season. So 3 of the 4 names, and the number 6 is a huge talking position within the Tottenham fan base as well. So you look at the names or even the positions, they are some of the ones that are most exposed by the way we play.
Yeah. I mean, in
Van
my opinion,
Venden's name isn't on it. Porro's name isn't on it, so they seem to enjoy it. That's 2 of the back 5.
yeah, I just personally don't know how much I do believe in the rumors, because I'd be very surprised to see them all of a sudden be throwing the manager under the bus. But it's a surprise to me, especially with certain players. I would agree, though, that there are guys like Madison could be in the team that might be having a disagreement with Ange, but I'm not too sure if there's anything that really is boiling or anything that really is, you know, kind of coming to a real boiling point kind of under the scenes.
wonder,
But we've
Jack,
been here before, though, lads, right? And that's might be a question to both you and Alan, is that we have been here before. And sometimes it was the signal at the beginning of the end whenever we saw these rumors of, you know, disagreements between the players and the manager. So is that the case here? Is it the sign of the beginning of the end, or is it just sensationalism?
I wonder, Jack. Sorry, Alan, to keep talking. Just
No,
I wanted
go
to,
ahead,
because
do
you
your
mentioned about the Vicario on the sidelines. I wonder if you can flip that and apply it to Vicario's discontent, where because you know some people have questioned why
He's
Vicario
coaching
isn't
for
just
Ange.
sitting down and shutting up. Like, I personally like, you know, Vicario wanting to get involved, but is there a question of, you know, Vicario is a very passionate guy, right? Italians traditionally are very passionate, and we can see that in the way that, you know, he shouts at the players when things aren't going right and whatever. Like, he's clearly controlled by his emotions. So I wonder, and it's a question to the panel, like, do you think maybe like him getting involved on the sidelines is kind of his way of like coaching an not necessarily anti-Ange, like get out the club, but an anti-Ange like ideology of like, here's what you need to do, boys, to like get the result or whatever.
Alan, what do you think of Vicario's kind of screaming on the touchline? Is that a sign of backing Ange or going against him?
You know, again, I like to think of it, as crazy as it sounds, the team is pretty much an office environment. If you imagine yourself in an office environment with a boss, you got your manager, you got your employees, and then you have one employee, let's say Vicario, who has things to work on, right? Everyone knows that there's some employees that tend to be very vocal, but they got stuff to work on. And, you know, in this case for him, it's like set pieces and, so with regard to Vicario talking on the sidelines, it's, you know, imagine yourself hearing it from an employee where, you know, hey, this guy's got stuff to work on. Do I want to hear it from them? Let them work on their own stuff for a while. And then, you know, once they're done working on their stuff that they need to improve upon, then I'd be more willing to listen to them. And I have a feeling that's probably what's happening, is he's willing to step up. But the problem is when you step up into a role of leadership, you pretty much have to be on it all the time. You know, you got to be the leader by example. And I got a feeling people don't respect Vicario as much as they could because of his performances. And again, I'll just look at the one that happened against France. You're going to look at what he did against France. He's a fantastic shot stopper. So was Hugo Lloris. But Hugo Lloris had his weaknesses, and so does Vicario. And I don't know that I feel like with regard to Hugo Lloris to Vicario, we kind of took a step to the side because they're both great shot stoppers, but they have their kryptonite that is easily exploitable. And you know, he was kind of everyone thought that he was the cheap option. I remember back when we first picked him up, everyone said, oh, he's just a Levy signing because he's the cheaper option. But he was doing very well. and he was kind of overachieving. Now we're kind of seeing the other side of Vicario, where maybe he's got these weaknesses. Did we get what we paid for? I like Vicario. I really want him to succeed. But I think with regard to the whole group, sometimes you do get what you pay for. And when expectations are here, but your players are here, expecting them to rise can be a tall order, especially when they're very highly paid employees. They've got egos. People all their life have been telling these guys, you're the best. You're amazing. You can do it, with very few detractors. That's how they get to this point. So I can imagine that there's a bit of ego involved here.
Sure.
Where players, they're like, look, you're telling us to do something in Ange. It's like, look, Ange has never coached players at this level. And I don't just mean Premier League. I mean salary-wise, ego-wise. These are players that are coming with entourages, and
Sure.
they have very egotistical agents. I think of Dragishin, these agents who do a lot of talking. It's a very different ballgame for Ange Postecoglou to manage. It's more than just managing what's on the pitch. It's also what's dealing with what's off the pitch. And I got a feeling he's losing there because he's probably very straight talking, he doesn't do a lot of talking in the press. And I got to imagine he probably he doesn't do a lot of talking to the players in the same way he doesn't do a lot of talking to the press. And he's very straight to the point, which can be off-putting, especially to employees who's like, look, I really wanted to have a heart-to-heart here, and you don't really want to have one with me because you don't want to have that closeness with me. It can be difficult. It can be really difficult. So I got to, we're at a crossroads, a horrible crossroads, but a crossroads where the players and the coach probably need some mediator to kind of have them come in and be like, look, let's air out our grievances now before it gets overwhelming, and just figure it out. Come to some meeting of the minds. Come to the middle here. Work it out.
You know what? Do you know what, when it comes to the straight talking stuff, though? I mean, if people think that Guardiola ain't straight talking to his players, you're sadly mistaken. If you think Jose and Conte didn't speak to their players directly like that, the way they did Tottenham players at other clubs, you're sadly mistaken. I'm sorry. But the reason why you go and win things is because you have straight talking people, between each other, and there's no air and fluff and airs and graces between it. When there's that stuff there, that's where you end up in that perpetual cycle, because you're just blowing smoke up each other's ass. So you're not actually making decisions. The straight talking is what makes you a winner. Work for Postecoglou everywhere he's been. He's had weaker dressing rooms. To your point, okay, I take the point that, maybe he hasn't worked with players of this ego, but then he's had players with a lot more fragility around them, and that's the reason why they're not at the top level of the game, but he's managed to get them to buy in and become winners. We've had the likes of Conte here and all. Jose Mourinho, it was okay for Porto, it was okay for Chelsea, it was okay for Inter Milan, Real Madrid, everywhere else he's been, even fucking Man United. But it wasn't okay for Tottenham Hotspur. Conte was okay for Inter Milan and everywhere else he's been. It wasn't okay for Tottenham Hotspur. And I'm sorry, but that's one narrative we need to take away. If you go and watch any of the documentaries that's out there about Man City, Guardiola's in there at halftime sometimes screaming at them. If he was to do that in the Tottenham dressing room, they would go and cry to Daniel to get him out. And that there is a real problem. You need straight talkers. That's how you go on and win things. And I'm sick of it that we expect these managers to come in here and be nice and bend their analysis and the way they speak to pander down to some of these players. All it is just them looking for an excuse not to win. Oh, he spoke to me in a mean way. I'm sorry. But if my old lad didn't speak to me straight up front and he told me I was brilliant and blew smoke up my ass, I'd be a dickhead. You know what I mean? I like to think I've turned out like a nice, sort of decent guy. And that's because straight talking approach. Winners can handle it, losers can't. And I'm sorry, they need to learn to be able to handle it. We come here, we act like, it's outdated. You can't do that anymore. But it's okay for teams that are winning. I'm not having it. The straight talking approach, get used to it, get out the football club and go and play in Azerbaijan with Karabakh, pick up your 14 titles and they can blow smoke up your whole fucking there when you're in obscurity and no one knows who you are. I'm sick of it.
You would think that
I mean,
in most situations, you would think that the players ought to be relatively intimidated by their manager. They would be, a little reluctant to question or reluctant to stand up to him. There should be that sort of, feeling of authority versus, you being the player. And most managers, they don't seem to come across as super nice, cuddly teddy bear type personalities. A lot of them do come across as having a very quiet type of authority about them, or a very real kind of authority about them in the way that they talk or the way that they sort of hold themselves. So you would think, Alan, that there would be that sort of tough, maybe let's say not ideal, but competitive, tense atmosphere between players and manager, and that can be normal.
I mean, if you think back a long time ago, again, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't supporting Tottenham until 2011, but I think of sports in general. I think of the NFL or any sport where the employees are highly compensated. But years ago, they weren't so highly compensated. So they really just had the passion for the team because they weren't getting the money. So if the coach went nuts, everybody listened because it's like, well, I'm here for the team, not for the paycheck. Now, a lot of these players are here for the paycheck because they are so highly compensated. So it takes the dynamic and shifts it around because so these straight talking coaches who kind of, maybe it worked back then, it might not work now. These young players that are paid millions and millions of pounds to play a game, their egos are pretty fragile. And again, it's because it's been cultivated. They're used to people blowing smoke. And I think the successful teams, Pep is Pep. Pep has the pedigree of a team that has won everything. So
We also had Jose and Conte who had a pedigree over teams where they've been everything as well. The thing is, what we're missing here, Klopp was the same at Liverpool. What we're missing here is it's not an outdated approach. We just don't have anyone inside the club that want to be winners and that don't like it as it is. It works for Guardiola. Yes, he's a cultivation of winning, but at the end of the day, he has full say there. If players moan, they're out of the football club. Same when it was Klopp at Liverpool. Same with Conte and Jose, wherever they've been. It's not outdated. We just don't like it at Tottenham Hotspur. That's the problem. At Tottenham Hotspur, we think it's outdated, but it's not. Any other club that
I agree with you.
Winning things over the last 20 years, it's acceptable.
No, I agree with you. I remember not in the distant past where Eric Dyer, I think, went straight to Daniel Levy because he was being left out, if I remember correctly. Was it Dyer? Someone went right to Daniel Levy, and it's a Levy problem. If Levy's not empowering Ange to be the be all end all for these players, and and players know that they can go to Levy or to higher ups to kind of finagle Ange, then that's a problem. That's a different issue. I think right now, I think that there's probably just a communication problem. Ange has his way of communicating. The players would rather a different way. And I'm not saying that Ange has to cave to the players or that the players have to, players really need to do what Ange needs them to do. I mean, first and foremost, that's just how it works in a team. The players execute the coach's vision. I mean, that's basic. So the question is, how is that message coming across? And are the players understanding what that vision is? And my guess is, because I'm a little confused about what Ange Ball is. And to be honest, if I was a defender for Ange, I would be terrified. It's a very demanding, difficult system. And I think especially on the defense, because it requires just so much more running than sometimes is necessary. Sometimes you feel like, why am I doing all of this running back and forth when if we play some counterattacking football, when we're a couple of goals up, why are we still trying to score 5 or 6 or 7 goals? Doesn't make a lot of sense. No one else is doing that. So I think that the players, someone needs to hear them so that they can be heard. Because again, these are very highly compensated employees, and their egos to match their pay. So they're going to want to be heard. The question is, how do you hear them, but at the same time get them to do what you want them to do? And it's a juggling act. That's why I don't envy Ange's job at all. He's got to be juggling balls like crazy between dealing with Levy, between dealing with the egos and the players and the staff for Spurs. It's untenable.
Just last and final question really on this, and then we'll talk a bit about the club crest and the dooming end of the world and the modernization of world football. But on to just the final question here, and it was mentioned, Daniel Levy, so I'll go to you on this one, Sam, and then get maybe everybody else's quick thoughts on it, and then we'll move on. But he did mention Daniel Levy there, Alan. I mean, to you, Sam, on this, Daniel Levy, what can he do in this situation? Can he back Ange Postecoglou in some way, try to validate what Ange is trying to do here? Does he protect the players? Does he protect Ange? Does he not do anything to sort of see how it boils and see where it goes from here? What does Daniel Levy do in a situation like this, if there is a feud between the players and the manager?
It's kind of a tough question, because in one way you kind of want Levy to do nothing and leave the players and the manager to sort out whatever's wrong with them. But at the same time, you also want him to kind of come out and, if he thinks Ange is the guy, to come out and back Ange, because, everyone talks about this culture at the club, right? And I'm not sure I necessarily buy into it. And I was listening to David Pleat on The Last Word on Spurs the other day, talking about how he also disagreed that there was this sort of culture that everyone talks about at Spurs, considering that there's so many different players now than even 6 years ago at the during the Poch era. It's like basically just basically just Davies and Son, and those are two players who aren't gonna be throwing their toys out the pram unless shit really hits the fan. And not to kind of give credit to Arsenal, but Lego Head, they came out and gave him the support that he needed.
Yep.
And that's where it's born, trust the process. As much as you might want to laugh at it, they did trust the process. They were in a heap of shit, doing much worse than us, in my opinion. Maybe the stats don't 100% back that up, but back-to-back 8th finishes or something in the league. And Ange finished 5th in his first season. Like, I know I've had my criticism for Ange, but I'm not overlooking, the real problems he's had to deal with since he came into Spurs, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch and in the boardroom, trying to juggle all this stuff. And people say that, he's a mouthpiece, or he's becoming a mouthpiece for the owners. But if Daniel Levy wants Ange to succeed, then Levy needs to become a mouthpiece for Ange and basically say to the players, if you don't want to get behind the manager, you can fuck off, basically. Like, you're under contract. The manager is in charge. I'm in charge of everything else. I say what the manager says goes. So if you don't want to fall in line, then leave.
Just two things on what Sam says there. I agree with him about Arsenal and the board need to come out. There was a similar time around Arsenal where there was a big rift between Aubameyang and Arteta. But what they come is they backed Arteta. They came out, backed Arteta, and they said to any players, okay, you don't want to be a part of this project? Leave. No problem. If I'm Daniel Levy, with the January transfer window coming up, I'm taking the exact same approach. I've given the dressing room trust before. They've let me down. I've hired and sacked managers on their word, but things haven't gone on improved. They haven't gone on to show that unity on the next guy and improve the situation. So now I need to take leadership in the situation, which he should have done in the first place. And he now needs to come out and back Ange Postecoglou and says, any player, you don't want to be here, leave in January, no problem, and I'll commit their funds to replace you. Because all of a sudden, that sends a shockwave through the dressing room. If you are happy at Tottenham and you don't want to go elsewhere, you will start bucking up your ideas very, very quickly. If you are adamant to leave, then you are always going to cause a problem for the manager in the first place. So for me, that's what Daniel Levy now needs to do. Come out, back Ange Postecoglou because he hired him because he thought he could work with him and he'd bring this style of play and everything else. So now's the time to stand there and back him, because if he doesn't, I'm telling you now, it's just we're going to keep seeing the inconsistencies, and it cost Angie's job, and we'll be here again very, very soon talking about a new project and stuff like that. He now needs to show leadership of the situation. And on the second piece about Ange being a mouthpiece for Daniel Levy, so was Pochettino. Everyone wanted him back at the club when his name was being touted. When we were going through the transition from the old stadium to the new stadium, he sat there and he backed and justified Daniel Levy for not putting the investment in the squad and stuff like that. So Postecoglou is looking at it and goes, well, I could take the Conte approach and lose my job tomorrow morning, or I could take the Pochettino approach, buy my time, hopefully the board back me and give me my time, and then I can see the fruition of this project. So at the end of the day, if a manager wants to work for a football club, same as you going into a job. If you go in and apply for a job at McDonald's, you're going to sit there, you're going to, baba, I'm loving it, everything else. You're going to embrace it, right? The minute you start saying Burger King's better, they're going to sack you and say, go and get a job there. Simple as. So, that mouthpiece stuff, I don't buy. I think, it's just smart that you sort of work, with your employers.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, we're going to move into the crest conversation here. Spurs, they have decided, I think in the worst of timing, over the international break, decided to rebrand and redesign the whole club logo and the club crest. Personally, I just think it's a bit bizarre. You would think they would do it when all the games are happening, and they would probably do it during a period where we wouldn't even notice, but they have decided to do it during a period where everyone would notice, and this is what we have to talk about before we end off the show. This is maybe share my screen here to show the video on Instagram of the redesigning and stuff as I'm bringing up the questions here. But how do fans feel about the rebrand? Do you appreciate it, or are you upset by it? Let's just get some initial thoughts from the people. Dave, maybe I'll go straight back to you on this one. When you woke up in the morning and you saw this little rebrand of the crest, did you roll your eyes? Were you annoyed? Not really care? How do you feel about the rebrand?
To be honest with you, Jack, I don't really care about it. Look, it's nice that they're looking to incorporate some of the club's history into it, the Seven Sisters, stuff like that. Fans have been asking for that. They've made a minor change. They're basically making the cockerel the front and center of the logo. They're taking out the Tottenham Hotspur underneath it. It's all for branding purposes, marketing purposes. To be honest, as a fan, it doesn't really get me excited. I don't really care. I know the history of Tottenham Hotspur, and I know what I want from Tottenham Hotspur. At the end of the day, I think it's just tone deaf. It's something that, you got to do to keep up with modern day things. A lot of clubs are doing this now as well. But I think it's tone deaf. In a time over international break, rather than put out a statement that we're rebranding, put out a statement about whether you're backing Ange Postecoglou, whether you're not, come out and do something productive, communicate with the fans that way. I think this is just absolutely tone deaf. And to be honest with you, I think the resources could be much more focused, the money, the time, and everything else on how to make Tottenham Hotspur win a bloody trophy on the football pitch, rather than all this bollocks. I'm not being funny, but they had, specialists working on it, got opinions from 300 people, and that's what they come up with. I'm not being funny, Jack. They could have just asked one person and they could have come up with that. I'm sorry, it's such a time and a waste, to be quite frank. I'm not outraged by it, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think it's tone deaf, and it doesn't actually do anything to inspire fans, which is all they're talking about, is wanting to win trophies on the pitch. There's nothing to that. So again, it's just another day at Tottenham, Jack, isn't it? We want one thing and they put out another thing. They think a change in the badge is what we need.
Feels pretty pointless to me, to be honest, the timing of it, as well as also even the changes made to it. It's almost like they kind of just made a little kind of in-school notebook type of change, like a little doodle in the notebook just to make it look a little bit different. But was this rebranding necessary, in your opinion? Yeah, Dave, were you about to say something?
Lastly, I do like the way they brought that back, that, what is it called, a MoneyGram or whatever it is, of the THFC from the 50s. I do like that. That's cool.
Okay, so maybe 50%, approval from Dave. Was this rebranding necessary, though, Sam? And do you feel like it represents actual, value for the fans, or could this have been maybe better spent, the time and the resources that it took to do this? Could this have been spent elsewhere, like Dave was suggesting? Dave was saying maybe more focus on the football pitch and trying to win some trophies instead of rebranding the logo for all the sponsors.
I'll let Alan answer that because he didn't really get to answer the last question.
Okay,
so
sorry.
That's all right.
No, well done, Sam. Alan, what are your thoughts on the branding of the logo?
I mean, I don't really care. The only thing that's frustrating now is I liked having Tottenham Hotspur below it because whenever here in America, whenever I'm wearing this, people look at it and they look at the cockerel or whatever, and then they're like, "What's that?" What? And then, but at least they could read Tottenham Hotspur, and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, Tottenham Hotspur. What's Tottenham Hotspur?" Now they're just like, "What's that?"
Where can I
But
get some chicken wings?
yeah, they don't know what to make it. Is that a sports team? Is that a what's going on there? It's really nothing. It's fluff. I don't know why they thought we would be excited about this. It's so minor, that it just doesn't. It boggles the mind. Who is our media team on Spurs, and what are they thinking? They're very out of touch. I do like the THFC. I really do like that, and if they're integrating that into the logo somehow, awesome. Um, I think there's far more other issues that we need to address than our emblem. But I mean, it's fine. It's just another way to sell stuff. Now you can get the newest. As it is, where our kits are super expensive. So does this mean that we got to buy all new kits again, or how does this work?
There's a new fashion line coming your way. Get
Yeah.
Now all the color hexes and things like that, they've had to rebrand and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a busy week for the media team, that's for sure. Just giving them something to do.
It's for the hotel jack that's coming. You can have a spinning 3D cockerel on the top of it, so you can see it from fucking Manchester.
I mean, does this seem like basically only a marketing move, for you, Sam, or is there any value in this that we can take as a fan base?
I mean, ultimately, I think no one cares, right? They could have not done this, and no one would have been saying, well, why the hell haven't they changed the
people have even
monogram
noticed.
thing? Why,
It's not even
why? Yeah, so it's. I think I think the main problem I have with it is the timing, right? I did design at school. Like, I'm not against changing the design. I looked up, I saw like a history of the Tottenham crests over the years, and we've only actually had the Tottenham Hotspur underneath the cockerel for 27 years, I think it was. I can understand Alan's point. I actually thought it was a really good point about maybe foreign people or people who don't follow football in anywhere, seeing the cockerel and wondering what it is. Maybe I do see some merit in having the name underneath it. Their argument was something along the lines of like, it means that we can make the cockerel bigger or something, on apparel. And I think there definitely is we can pretty much bet our entire life savings that there's now going to be multiple new lines of Spurs clothing in the shop, right? I think that they did try and do something that I can commend them for, and I think it was touched upon where they're talking about like the Bruce Castle and the Seven Sisters trees. I think that is positive, but the kind of stuff that I feel like the fans really want is, like, they spoke at the beginning of the season about they used to have the Tottenham gates where there's that photo of Bill Nicholson opening the gates, right? I think fans want a Bill Nicholson statue in front of those gates, opening the gates like the photo is. You know what I mean? Or they want statues to remind them of the rich history that we have. And rival fans like to laugh at us and say that we only have history, we don't have any future or any present. And let's be honest, at the moment we don't. So I think in one sense they've not done enough, but I'm also not going to cry that like they've done this. I think that had they done it at the beginning of the season, no one will be talking about it in the negativity that is being brought up on Twitter and in the comments and stuff as well. Like, I just think that ultimately it's kind of irrelevant, and it's a bit of a distraction from everything that's going on, which is maybe why they've done it now, because stuff is starting to look a bit down, and maybe they're trying to take heat off the team because people are talking about this and not, oh, Vicario's shit, and your shit. This is all shit. We can't win the game. We've got tough period coming up. I think it's just a bit of a media exercise and a bit of like a wish-wash, kind of trying to get people to forget that there are problems going on in the club, and maybe get people to be angry at this change rather than the stuff going on in front of our eyes.
No, I agree. Actually,
we have a Harry Kane, quote unquote Harry Kane statue that looks nothing like Harry Kane.
It seems like the statues have not gone too well for most footballers. They don't seem to get it right for some reason. I personally don't even know if I would have even noticed had they just made the changes and then not even announced it or anything. I don't even know if I would have noticed, much of the design changes.
They were never going to do something like that, Jack, and not say anything. They needed to let you know they spent money to change it.
But that's how inconsequential it is for me, because yes, they took away the Tottenham Hotspur part of it, but like people have pointed out, there have been lots of crests in the past that have no mention of the word Tottenham Hotspur in it. I think that's a very fair point to make. And then also, it's not really that different from the previous crest whatsoever. It's not that radical of a change. Like, they completely redid it to something else. And like Dave said, I kind of like the whole THFC type of new logo that they've added as well. I made a comment to him before we went on air saying it kind of actually looks like the New York Yankees logo. They've almost tried to steal it a little bit with the way with the way the letters are joined up with each other. But you look at like other teams that have made crest changes or club logo changes. I think Juventus is one that I thought was really bad and really shameful at the time. They went from that awesome, cool, old school crest to the weird black J. And then I think Inter Milan also changed theirs. And I used to like their old logo as well. I think Atletico Madrid did change theirs or something. And then there was like a ton of blowback and hysteria. And then they kind of had to slightly amend it because they did such a poor job from the get-go. So for the most part, it's not like Spurs have really made that much of a mare, I think, of this change. And you look at some of the really historic European sides, which sadly also have, a huge history, maybe even bigger ones than we have changed their crest for the whole marketing and commercial aspect. And to be honest, it seemed like people just eventually get over it and people eventually just sort of move on with their lives. So it's not really that serious. And in our case, it's not like we really changed it that dramatically, in my opinion.
No, not at all. In fact, go ahead.
I was just going to say that my problem with it is the only ownership of Tottenham that's ever focused on projects like this. Every other ownership focused on trying to build a team to be able to go on and pick up a couple of trophies. That's what it was all based upon. This guy, he doesn't have that ambition. That's secondary to him. Everything else is about catering towards the business people, and I'm absolutely fed up with it. In a time now where Tottenham are sort of, the manager's in a hard time. We want to know what the January transfer plans are, stuff like that. We want to know what the future looks like. And they come out and again put something out that caters to what everybody gives out to this ownership about. It's absolutely tone deaf. The only time where we need leadership, they think, grand, let's change the fucking badge. Brilliant, great leadership from the football club. I'm absolutely had it up to here with it. They can go out and source the best entertainers to come in here and make concerts. They can go out there and source the biggest and best boxing fights to bring into the stadium. But what they can't fucking do is they can't bring in the best players to be able to come and actually deliver trophies for us fans. I'm fed up with it. They even bragged about bringing in marketing specialists to come in and do this project. You're bringing in the best in class for everything else that Spurs fans don't care about. I'm sick of it. Start listening to us. Maybe you wouldn't get as much blowback the way you do across all the social media platforms. And start caring about what's on the football pitch. I'm sorry, but a rebrand, I do get Sam's point. Don't get me wrong. I do get Sam's point. Maybe there's something to it, actually. Maybe they put it out to just try and distract people. But when fans are where we are now, we ain't falling for it. It's just putting them in more negative light in terms of the fan base. All it's doing that is if there is any people that still back them, it's just getting them off. Every time they put something out like that, slowly and slowly, it's just sending them away from, that sort of side of the argument. It's just absolutely shocking, and I'm fed up with it. We didn't need a brand change. We needed someone with a bit of gall, a bit of bollocks to come out and show some leadership over this international break, and they didn't do it.
No,
I agree with you. Dave, about the players, buying the players. I was trying to touch on it earlier too, about how when you have expectations up here but players are only here, I think if I was an employee and they were expecting me to excel at something that I just wasn't able to succeed at, I'd be frustrated. When your manager has expectations of you and in your heart you can't meet those expectations, you get frustrated. So I don't know if maybe that's something we're seeing, where Ange's expectations are higher than what our players can put out. Maybe except for like Mickey Van de Ven, who's like the fastest dude. Maybe he can, put up with it. So it's not as big a deal for him. Unfortunately, it's his hammies. But a lot of these other players, maybe they just don't have the stamina, the fortitude, whatever, to be able to put up with this style of play. So they're just getting frustrated because they don't know what else to do. They're like, look, you brought me here, but I can't meet your expectations. So I'm hoping maybe that's some of it. And that should tell Levy, hey, by the way, if you were to invest in the cream of the crop, you can expect that they're going to meet those expectations.
True.
Yeah. I mean, is there any other comments about sort of the rebranding or the redesign of the logo before we get to the members' comments? Any other final opinions? Okay.
I kind of wish we had gone back to like what Dave is wearing on his badge right there. Like an older style.
Yeah.
If we were going to change it, Americans, we love our nostalgia, and I'm sure it's no different there in the UK. And sometimes a rebranding of an older badge is like revitalizing it. It would be awesome. I think that would have been worth it. But because I love the older badges. I think they're awesome. The newer one, the fact that we did what we just did, it's laughable, ridiculous.
Now, I'd actually agree. I think they could have gone maybe for an old, kind of modernization of maybe an older badge or something like that, a redesign of an older look to a badge. And I think a lot of us would have gotten on board with that actually instead of this. But, most of the time they usually do get these type of decisions wrong, and they can be a little bit tone deaf to what people actually want. But I would agree with you. And I think some other clubs have actually done that. They've gone for maybe an older version of their crest instead of going for a more modern version like other clubs have. So completely agree with you there, Alan.
Lastly, just quickly on taking the Tottenham Hotspur off the name. Is it because that's the way more modern football clubs are going, or is it because he saves numbers on like for 40 letters or whatever it is, 20 letters, in terms of printing and stuff on merch and stuff like that? Because, we all know how expensive, like, if you were to get Kulusevski on the back of your jersey, we know how much expensive that is compared to if you get someone like Son. So, I wonder, was that a cost-cut exercise as well, disguised as,
I have a small opinion on
rebranding?
that. It might be a bit extreme, but I do wonder, with the globalization that is happening to the game in general, where a majority of fans come from all around the world, the kind of identification of the actual area in which the team is from becomes, for these people like Daniel Levy and the actual owners and the board people, becomes less and less important actually where the club is physically located. It's more about the globalization of like marketing to the whole world. They want people to become Spurs fans. They don't really care that Spurs happens to be in Tottenham. They're more just caring about as many people becoming Spurs fans as possible. And so maybe that's what it kind of has to do with, is, taking away the location out of the name and kind of making it more of like Spurs is the brand, not Tottenham as the brand, but Spurs is the brand, and
I
Tottenham.
agree with that.
Super League-esque, that, isn't it?
It's a little bit dark. But that's my
I do agree with
thinking.
that. But
And I wouldn't blame other clubs for doing that. Like maybe Nottingham Forest will all of a sudden, 20 years from now, everybody will just call it Forest and never think of it as like happening to be located in Nottingham. Or I don't know, maybe Brighton will all of a sudden be called the Seagulls instead of be called Brighton or something like that. And that's what Spurs are more or less doing, I think.
I do agree with that, but then also I would go back and say about that whole Seven Sisters thing and the Bruce Castle thing. So maybe the argument is they're taking it away from the forefront whilst trying not to get rid of it completely. So I do agree, but I also think they have tried a little bit to bring some reference to the culture and the heritage of the club.
Mm.
Eugene's saying global
quickly,
logos don't have names under them, which is also a very good point. You know, if you are going to make it into a brand, if you want to make it into a brand, it wouldn't have its name underneath.
Part of me thinks, though, will you see a lot of the Super League clubs go this way, so that eventually they take the attachment away from the area, and then they can go into that globalized news that they want to go into. But just quickly, you know, in despite of what we've all said, I do think, you know, William Webb has made a good point here. He says Levy, to his credit, has set the club up for the next 25 years for stability financially. Other clubs in poor shape who could fall off the perch. And you know what? That is one good thing, you know, that I don't have to wake up and, you know, oh, my club's in financial ruins and I could lose it. You know, I'm glad on that case. However, it still doesn't excuse the lack of trophies under his ownership. A lot of other owners had a lot less money to navigate and work with, and they still managed to help deliver trophies at Tottenham. So I still maintain that, you know, he needs to do that alongside of what he's doing.
Just quickly to that as well, Levy will always probably keep us on par with pretty much the rest of the clubs when it comes to modern type advancements, you know, whether it's like ticket exchange or, you know, buying from the club shop or going to the games, you know, whatever it might be, he'll try to supply, you know, the most high, you know, high value, whatever expensive, you know, really, you know, catered experience, you know, to us as Spurs fans. You know, we get to feel like we're part of a brand, not a club. You know, Spurs is a brand, not a club. All these type of things that I think Levy will pretty much always keep us on par with, and that's also the case when it comes to sponsorships. He'll give us the best crypto sponsor there is, or when it comes to, you know, whatever food, you know, voucher, whatever type of you know, soda options or anything it might be, it will always be like the most advanced, the most, you know, high value, whatever. But I agree with you, Dave. It's just when it comes to actual, let's say, you know, realistic football club decisions, he's usually going to get it wrong. It's usually going to be tone deaf, or he's not going to actually have that sort of fundamental understanding. He's not a proper football man, as Graham Souness would like to say, but he does know how to, you know, keep us up to date with all the new modern advancements that clubs do have to do, like rebranding logos and, you know, coming up with new crypto sponsorships and things like that. That is what he's actually sadly quite good at. Any final
He's very
opinions?
much like an American owner.
Totally.
American, you know, club owners are very much like that. It's all about the bottom line, and they're thinking about expansion. They're not really thinking about the fans so much. They just create the experience.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that doesn't go down well there in the UK, you know, and I understand why. Levy's not an American owner. It's not an American team. It's a UK team. It's a, you know, with a rich history. But he treats it like it's no longer the focus. You know, I don't think he looks at the men's first team as the purpose for the whole of the organization. He's looking at it from hotels, other investments, stuff like that. And the men's team is just now kind of taking a second fiddle.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think Americans actually are a little bit desensitized to this type of thing. We've gotten used to it for a pretty long time now, whereas it's become more of a thing in the UK, this, you know, way for owners to make money, you know, in a variety of different sources, revenue streams, and thinking about the bottom line is definitely more of a recent phenomenon, I think, in the UK for sports than it is for us Americans. I think we've been pretty conditioned to it for a long time now with very greedy owners and very money focused, let's say, people behind our sports teams. So yeah, we've gotten quite used to it at this point.
Oh yeah.
Any final opinions, lads, before we get to the members' comments?
No, we better get to the to the members' comments because we have a meeting, and then I'm on Spurs Diehards Adrian's channel at 8.
Great. Everybody, if you can for us, though, 170 in the house, smash the like button. Only 50 last time I checked, so if we could get that closer to 100, be very appreciative. Do thank Alan and Sam as well for giving up their time this evening. And let's get to some of these members' questions, what you guys have in store for us here. I'm just going to zoom in to make the reading a little bit easier for you guys. Let's say something, Dave.
No.
Okay, sorry. MV Joker Davis, Eddie here. Saying scoreline prediction for the City game. I'm going 3-1 Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. I'll take this one. Or actually, no, we give our members previews. Maybe we give it to Sam and Alan.
Mm.
Alan, what's your prediction for the game this weekend, if you were to give one? Score prediction.
I'm a little nervous, I'll be honest. We'll be looking at their first team squad minus Rodri. And if there is a bit of discontent in the club, what better way to show it than not show up for a game against a team like Man City? But if the team shows up, if our first team shows up, now again, Bentancur is banned for 7 games, and it includes this one, I believe, so he won't be there. But everyone else should be there, unless Romero picked up an injury, because I know he came back early. Do we know if it's because of injury? Is that why he came back early?
Yeah,
it seemed to be the same issue with his foot that he came off against Luton for.
Okay, and we know we don't have VDV back yet, so I'm a little concerned. My guess is I'm going with a Desmond 2-2.
Okay, very nice. I could take a 2-2. To be honest, I think also we would be, kind of still left in confusion about, how good we actually are if we were to have a 2-2, which makes Dave and I's job a lot easier for fine things to talk about. Kenneth, Tottenham Hotspur, just sending in some support towards the end here. Really appreciate you, Kenneth. Big up David and Jack. I always watch from behind the scenes. Come on, you Spurs. Well, that's nice. It's nice to know that plenty of you guys are watching as you're going about your day, doing some work, some shopping, cleaning the house. I'm that sort of person, to be honest, Dave. I kind of, a lot of the content that I kind of consume for the most part is just me while I'm doing something, going on a walk, ending up, doing some cleaning around the house, in the shower. Kind of become less of a music person even in the last couple of years. Just kind of throw on somebody's voice for 20 minutes as I'm basically doing something. And hopefully, Kenneth, you're still enjoying the show, still enjoying the channel, the program. Really appreciate the support. But I don't know, Dave, is that how you're kind of consuming things nowadays? That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, that's how I consume it a lot. There's a lot of great sports podcasts out there, Tottenham podcasts and stuff like that. So there's always stuff to be listening to while you're going about doing your daily stuff. So I appreciate it, Kenneth. And look, don't ever be afraid to put in your opinions or your questions, my man. We will get them answered. But big up, Kenneth, all the way from Norway. Really appreciate it, sir. And yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate support, my man. And then MV Joker Davis, this is definitely for Sam. Who to blame for us getting relegated in clubs? Sam, I'm not sure if you were there, but if you were to blame somebody, who would you like to blame?
I blame myself for letting you guys play without me and not carry you guys to victory.
Good answer. I think the person asking the question has to take a large portion of the blame, along with one that's actually missing today, is Shawnee Maddox. I think they're the two that need to take the large portion of the blame. I think if the game help the likes of me, Sam, Tyler, Jack, Dan, I'm missing the name there, Stevie Fraser, I think we'd be the benefit of it, quite personally. I hear a lot of, I tried this, I tried that, but I don't see a lot of execution. So if you want the answer, Eddie, I blame you and Sean.
Well, it's I think we know who the culprits are, Edward, and one of them might be on this panel, unfortunately. So definitely a lot of work to be done in order to get back into the good graces of the rest of the team. We have Conga saying, thoughts about the badge change? Do you think it is an attempt to slowly go further away from being known for football and become more of an all-around business? Yeah, we had some questions on the end there from that, Conga. I mean, someone else can cut me off here, but like I said, if I were to go down a really dark sort of answer and maybe go down a little conspiracy theory path, I think it kind of just has to do with branding Spurs as this kind of more than a football club. It's, this, logo that can be put on an NFL team. It can be put on a crypto sponsorship. It can be used and applied to anything. And it basically is about the branding of Spurs and taking away the whole kind of location and sense of locality and, let's say just that smallness of, maybe what Tottenham might have felt like in the past, like a real local club, a real local feeling. I think they're just trying to basically take away from that within some sort of sensible type of means, without completely killing that sense of localness inside the Tottenham area. I think they're basically trying to turn it into more of a worldwide brand, if you will. But again, that's a very conspiracy type way to go down. But if I were to go down that path, that's what it's kind of giving me vibes of. Then
I agree.
also, drop kick your teacher saying, let me get to the question. We still haven't properly replaced Moussa Dembele years later. What's one midfielder you'd bring in to fulfill that for everyone? Should Langa and Rob McKenzie be under more pressure than Ange? Maybe we'll go to Dave on the first
I'll
one
take the
here.
second part.
Oh,
I'll
you
take
want
the
to take the
second
second
part
one?
about Rob
Okay.
McKenzie and Lange because
I'll take the
it is
first
so-
part.
Yeah, take
Yeah,
the
go
first
on, you
one,
take
Alan.
the
What's a
first part.
midfielder that's been catching your eye?
I really like Jamal Musiala. I think he's young. He's fantastic for Bayern. I think he would slot right in, no problem. He dribbles well. He does the sorts of things that I think Moussa Dembele used to do. And I would have him at our club in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. I think he's a world class player. I think he walks
I've got
into this
another
game.
player as well that I think it's maybe a bit more realistic than than Musiala, but I also don't know if he's necessarily the Dembele replacement. But I've been really impressed with also at Bayern, Konrad Laimer. Every time I watch him play, I just think he has the right attitude and he just gets about the pitch like so well. Always gets stuck in. I just like the way that he looks. So he's one player that I would be interested in. You know, if you know they've obviously brought in Palhinha, and if he's seeing less minutes, he's one that I'd be interested in taking the plunge on.
Yeah, he's kind of.
Kefran Turan is another name I throw out there.
Yeah, I think Konrad Leimer is like the Austrian Energizer Bunny. He just never stopped running, kind of like an N'Golo Kante. But I do sometimes wonder if he has that technical ability for this team. Dave, you have the responsibility of the second part of this. For everyone, should Langa and Rob McKenzie be under more pressure than Ange?
Should be under serious pressure. The some of that they delivered was nowhere near good enough. You know, they've took over from Paratici and Gabbanini, and it's now off Johan Lange's and Rob McKenzie's sort of directive. And look, I have a feeling Aston Villa sacked him to bring in Monchi so they could get the big deals done to really push on as a football club. And I think we've hired him, I think, originally to come in here and try and boost the homegrown side of the squad, because that is one area that me and you, when we looked into him, we done well at Aston Villa. But an awful lot of excuses for not getting deals done over the summer, considering we were led to believe by many publications coming into summer we would be getting big deals. Eze would be number one target. And I feel like ultimately he's going to leave here with so many excuses like Steve Hitchen. And I just hope the fan base don't bite him like they did with Steve Hitchen. You know, Steve Hitchen, oh, well, we wanted Skriniar, but, you know, we wouldn't stretch the extra money to get him. Okay, that's great, but Paratici didn't have any of them excuses. It's like, okay, you want that much, but we don't have it this year. We'll just pay you next year. He got deals done in for this football club. Johan Lang failed. That's why we ended up with Udebur, Gray, people like that to salvage the window, because he couldn't get deals done. He doesn't have the know-how, doesn't have the contacts, and there's a reason why Aston Villa got rid of him. He is going to be as bad for this football club as Steve Hitchen, and the quicker Levy realizes that, the better.
And also for everyone, how many players do you want to come in January? For me, it's 3 senior signings minimum. I'd be furious if we want to do what we did in the summer. I do fear we won't bring anyone in, and it'll cost us like what we're seeing now. I'm a little fearful that we won't see much activity this January, just because the players that we would be trying to get rid of, I think, are very established senior players in the team, and it would be pretty dramatic to get rid of guys like Richarlison, Madison, Basuma, some of these sort of players that are maybe a little iffy right now with whether they'll be here for the long run. And so I just think that'd be hard for us to do in January window. I would like us to get a left back. You know, there are plenty of options out there, but I think that's what we definitely need to be securing this January window. It'd be nice to get a real backup goalkeeper, someone that is better than Fraser Forster and also more ready than the other players that we have available to us. And then it'd be nice as well to have someone actually compete with Sonny, Johnson, and the others in that forward line that could also be technically a replacement for someone like a Richarlison, who's just never fit and available, and someone who is better than a Timo Werner. So those would be my 3. I don't really see that happening, though. I think Spurs will probably only bring about 1 or 2, and we'll be, once again, left very short and frustrated. Dave, for you, though, Dara O'Shea, better than Dragashin? You ready to hurt his feelings?
No, look, artists, I appreciate, you know, bringing some Irish players in here and stuff like that. But trust me, this guy is not as good as Dragusin. I moan about Dragusin because he's not at the level we need him to be yet. Don't get me wrong. But Darrell O'Shea is far worse on the football than Radu Dragusin. 9 times out of 10, that guy goes to make a pass, it goes straight to the opposition. Doesn't close down shots on the edge of the box. For the size of the guy, I think a bit weak airily. Nowhere near good enough for Tottenham Hotspur. Nowhere near it.
And last and final question, Lee Harvey, evening panel. Do we know who's fit or not fit for the City game? Well, already we don't have Rodrigo Bentancur. Question marks over whether Romero should be fit or not. I'm pretty sure Van de Ven won't be available. Any other players I'm missing? Richarlison shouldn't be available.
We've not had an update on Mikey Moore, as far as I know. Still kind of struggling with this this virus,
illness,
apparently.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, I think we got a few missing, and I think Spurs at this moment in time are actually one of the most injured teams in the Premier League. Wilson Odebear, right? It's going to be a long time before he's back. Just dropping like flies once again, and you have to ask questions of the medical team and just everything. Just Spurs have never seemed to have a healthy season in a long, long time, and just any of these players that we end up bringing in as well, they always end up getting injured. It feels like more than they really get game time in their first season. It's been very frustrating. So, Lee, I think we're going to go into it pretty threadbare for the most part. I guess just the big worries is whether Romero is going to be available or not, because going into that City game without him would be very, very tough for us. We saw how much Davies and Dragusin struggled in previous games together. But I think that's our show.
Just
Thank you,
quickly,
Alan. Yeah, Dave.
Just quickly before we end off, got this comment here from Joe. Says, do you get more views for all the negativity? Used to be a good show, this miserable moaning and on and on. Come on, you Spurs. First of all, if you're trying to say we're being negative for the sake of views, you're absolutely wrong. I think if we were sitting here being positive, that would be for the sake of views, considering the time that we're in. Second of all, stats, if anyone actually wants to go and check, we actually get more views when we win than when we lose, actually, to be quite honest with you. People prefer us when we're happy and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's the time we're in. I get it. Some people don't like Tottenham Hotspur being spoken in negative light and stuff like that. But the talking points come about from the time that we're in. It's that simple. What do you want me to do? Pluck some out of thin air that are all happy clappy when we're not in them times? That'd just be false in my opinion. Look, Joe, it's not for everybody. I understand it. Some shows are more positive than others. Some shows are more negative than others. But at the end of the day, it's Tottenham Hotspur. They're up and down. To just sit here and be completely deluded and oblivious to stuff. I'm not quite sure it's the right thing to do, to be quite frank. Here, we like to have honest conversations, whether it's good or bad.
To be honest, I'm not really sure if you watch much of the show, Joe, because I think a lot of us also didn't really give too much belief to even the rumors at all that there's much of a discord. At least I didn't. And I don't think there was that much of a negative conversation. And I think, like what Ryan is saying, if you even heard our voices throughout this, I think it's just us being more bored by the rumors about the Discord and us being more bored by the rumor or the crest logo being changed. If anything, it's it's more a sense of boredom than it is negativity at this time. So I think you got that one wrong. But let's give our fellow panelists some moments to thank them as well as plug them. Please, everybody, thank Alan for filling in excellently for Johnny. As much as we hope Johnny escapes, I think it's good to know that Alan is doing very well in these panel shows. Looking forward to have him on for maybe some pre-match buildups and some other stuff as well. Thank you to you, Alan. And
thank you for having me.
I'm going to put in Team Tottenham Go. I know you're a busy guy, and you just put in a video just recently for people to watch. But yeah, my man, thank you for joining us. Thanks for coming on and making this show possible today.
Anytime. My pleasure. It's always a pleasure supporting this channel.
And anything you want to say on maybe that recent video that you put out as well?
Sure. It was a follow-up video. I did a video a couple months ago about Ange and Son. Ange as a leader and kind of pondering about that, and Son as a captain and kind of voicing kind of my frustration with it. And now I kind of did a follow-up about it. And that's what people can see. I kind of, just to summarize, I think that when it comes to leadership, like with Son, when you have so many youth players on the team, you need to have a leader. people say like, yeah, well, captains, it's not like it used to be. You don't need them as much. And whilst that might be true, I think when you do bring in a lot of youth into a team, they require someone to look at as a, this is the paragon. That's the leader. I got to follow them. I want to emulate that. Otherwise, they're just going to kind of figure things out on their own, which 50-50, maybe even less, whether they succeed as a result. So I kind of think that we owe these youth players a good leader who they can follow and succeed under. So that's kind of the stuff I'm talking about in the video.
Please, everybody, show some love to Alan. Thought he did an excellent job today. Subscribe over to his channel, Team Tottenham Go. It's in the chat there. Just thought he did a great job today. So please thank him. Thanks for watching us today as well. And to you, Sam, becoming a regular captain of the club's team. Lots of responsibility being given to you week by week by Dave and I. How are you, my friend? And anything to plug yourself? I just keep putting in the Twitter, but anything else that's going on in life or in general? Any final words that you might have for us?
No, look, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure doing this, even when you throw me in last minute as well. Alan, it was a pleasure to jump on with you. As I said, I was looking forward to getting on with you and hearing your views. You're always very calm.
Thank you. You were awesome. It's great to meet you.
Thank you. That comment about the negativity, I mean, that's kind of why I wanted to get involved in this in the first place, right? And I've said it before. There's so much sensationalism in the Tottenham sphere around the club, right? And I've always been under the assumption that it's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems. And as you guys said, I'm not sure if that commenter actually watched the show, because it might have even seemed to some in the comments that Dave and I were at loggerheads at points where maybe I'm being as perceived negative, and Dave was coming back with the opposite. And that's the point of these panel shows. You want to have both sides of discussion, and that's not to say that I'm super negative about the whole thing. I feel like I try and bring points on both sides. Even if I've been negative on something, I'll always try and come back and praise other aspects, or put blame on someone else rather than just on Ange, for example. So if you like that sort of stuff, then jump over to my Twitter, where I basically just kind of occasionally I'll go on, if I've got the energy after a game, to give you an essay about how I feel about the performance from the boys. I go on the occasional post-match fan show. Just most of the time it's just therapy, isn't it? We're fortunate that we're now at the end of the international break. We've had the time to calm down after that loss that even just thinking about it now, I'm building the anger back up. But we've had a really nice discussion about these rumors, and I will keep calling them rumors, because we'll probably never find out whether there was a bust up, or if we do, it will be in 5 years down the line, once players have retired and Ange has moved on, and we hear tidbits like we heard about this Lloris watch incident, right? And again, it will always be framed in a way to make whoever's telling the story look better. So we'll never know what truly has happened behind the scenes. But look, stay with us, like the video, and we'll be back again.
I appreciate it.
We never stop.
I just want to say I appreciate everybody's time this evening. Coming back off international break, a nice little one to get us back into the move and into the groove again. So appreciate everybody. Like I said, please get over. Follow Sam on Twitter. Make sure you get over. Follow Al on Team Tottenham Go. And look, Joe, you're more than entitled to your opinion if that's the way you feel. But a lot of others say we have a great show, especially my father. If my father's listening, it means we're doing a good job, because he doesn't listen to Shy. And then also, less known says it's good. Ian Ferguson, K32, Big Mike, J Mac. I like this one. Anil Matic as well. J Mac says, to be fair, Dave and Jack are pretty balanced on this channel. It's the reason it's one of the few channels I listen to. Look, I appreciate it. Look, I get it. Sometimes I get emotional either way. Sometimes I can get carried away on the too happy side or the too, unhappy side. But at the end of the day, I'm me and I'm real and I won't change for nobody. So I will not apologize for that. But guys, thank you very much for everybody who's decided to tune in tonight. Thank you for Jack, great hosting job. Thank you for the boys giving up the time. Thank you to Eddie and Kenneth who have gone the extra mile, and all of you guys at home who's been listening in. Really appreciate it. And last but not least, guys, if you do see Johnny about, or you follow him on Twitter, or you want to put it in here or underneath the show for him to see it, make sure you get in the comments and wish the guy a big happy birthday. You can never get too many. But that's it from us. We'll see you back here over the course of the week with plenty more content, guys.
Yeah, descend into the madness. We're getting ready for a lot of games. Get ready, people. Get ready. Do whatever you can before Spurs becomes your life for the next 2 months. You're looking forward to it. But yeah, come on, you Spurs. In the Big Ange we trust. We never stop. And we'll be seeing you next time, everybody.
See y'all soon. Great challenge. Don't you dare, F. He got the ball.